What do you do when you know exactly how you are going to die, and you have months to stop it, but you can't? The breaking before the cross. You are on your knees as the night air presses down. Your pulse hammers against your skull, and then you feel a warm liquid trickling down your face. You reach up and your fingers come away crimson, but nobody has touched you. This is hematidrosis. It's a condition where microscopic blood vessels surrounding your sweat glands rupture under catastrophic psychological stress. It's documented in medical literature, but it's astonishingly rare. Researchers have recorded cases in condemned prisoners awaiting execution, in someone during the London Blitz, and among individuals facing sexual assault. This happened to Jesus in a garden called Gethsemane just hours before his execution. When blood seeps through sweat glands, it leaves the skin fragile and hypersensitive. Every nerve ending is exposed and primed for pain. His body was already preparing for violence he had not yet experienced. Yet, what humans cannot comprehend is the fact that Jesus knew exactly what was coming. Not in the abstract, but in excruciating detail. In fact, he had known for months. The anticipation was its own torture, betrayal, denial, abandonment, and physical agony. And something far worse, bearing the weight of divine wrath for sins he had never committed. He prayed 3 times for another way. Yet despite all of that, silence answered him. The cup would not pass. Luke chapter 22:44 paints this picture vividly. Being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. While blood dripped from his forehead onto olive roots, he could hear footsteps approaching and see torches flickering through the trees. But Jesus was not hiding. Judas had prearranged a signal with the authorities. Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Arrest him. In that culture, a kiss was how students greeted rabbis. It was a gesture of affection, respect, and intimacy. Judas would weaponize tenderness itself, and Jesus knew it was coming. In Luke 22:48, Jesus said, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" Put yourself in such a situation. You know your friend is about to mark you for death with an embrace. This is someone who's eaten at your table, walked beside you for years, and even listened to you teach. To add on to the mystery, you know during that moment, the other friends will scatter and one of your closest friends will even deny ever knowing you. And you walk directly into it. When the soldiers seized Jesus, the disciples fled and Peter denied him, not once, but thrice. Every single one. He stood alone, hands bound, his skin still tender and bleeding from stress his body could not contain. Within hours, that same fragile skin would be shredded by a Roman whip. The psychological breaking in Gethsemane was not preparation for what came next. It was the beginning of it. The body that sweated blood was the same body that would hang on a cross. And by then, it was already compromised, wounded, and in shock before the first blow ever landed. And he chose that. He walked straight into the garden, straight into the kiss, and into the violence. Why? The destruction of the body. The Romans did not call it a whip. They called it a flagrum. And the difference matters. Imagine leather straps embedded with pieces of zinc, iron, and sharpened bone fragments, and sometimes even knuckle bones from sheep. Whenever trained executioners swung it, the weighted ends left marks and also ripped skin away in strips, exposing muscle beneath and tearing into deeper tissue with each successive blow. Ancient historian Eusebius recorded eyewitness accounts where observers stood in horror as victims were beaten until their veins and arteries lay exposed, until internal organs became visible through the carnage. This was more than punishment. By the time they stopped, Jesus was in shock. His blood pressure had plummeted from severe hemorrhaging, his body shutting down from trauma. His back skin hung in ribbons, and he could not even carry his own cross. Simon of Cyrene had to do it for him, but the cross was waiting. The nails were not the thin and delicate things in paintings. They were iron spikes, 7 to 9 inches long, and they did not go through the palms as that's anatomically impossible. Instead, the executioners drove them through the wrist and between the bones, areas where they would sever or crush the main nerve to the hand. When the nerve was hit, continuous electric shock waves of pain shot through the arms and radiated out through all 5 fingers. Then they nailed his feet, just as Isaiah chapter 53:5 explains. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. And one thing you might be missing about crucifixion is that it's designed around a horrific and practically impossible choice. When you hang by your arms, your chest muscles lock in the inhale position. You can breathe in, but you cannot breathe out. Carbon dioxide then builds in your blood and panic sets in. To exhale, you have to push up on the nails in your feet, a move that makes the nerve pain explode. You gasp out the breath and then you slump back down, hanging by your wrists. And that cycle is repetitive until you give out. For Jesus, every breath required pushing up about 12 inches on shattered nerves, then collapsing back down. And he did that for 6 hours before he finally breathed his last. The trauma he had already endured accelerated everything. His body had been compromised before he ever reached Golgotha. The cross did not start the killing. It finished what the flagrum began. Yet there is a strange twist to this story. The Gospel in Luke 23:46 indicates that Jesus did not simply succumb to his injuries. He actively released his spirit. "Into your hands I commit my spirit." Then he died. The body gave out. But something else was happening that no autopsy could document. And the question remains, what kind of suffering was this, that even death had to wait for permission? What happened that no one talks about? You see, Rome had perfected the art of suffering. For half a millennium, they had mastered the science of prolonging agony and making death as public and excruciating as humanly possible. While the physical torment was designed to be the empire's ultimate weapon, an invisible catastrophe that was far worse than torn flesh and splintered bone was occurring. The weight descending upon Christ was not measured in pounds. Every betrayal humanity ever committed, every cruelty, as well as every moment of darkness throughout all of history, was being transferred. All that was placed entirely upon one man. And for this transaction to occur, separation became inevitable. For the first time since before time itself began, the Son experienced what he had never known: distance from the Father. Throughout the trials, the mockery, and the scourging that shredded his back to ribbons, Jesus remained present. He never lost consciousness, not during the beatings that left his face unrecognizable, or when they pressed thorns into his skull, or even when iron spikes tore through his wrists. Victims in shock don't speak coherently or maintain awareness, but the gospel accounts show Jesus fully coherent and speaking with clarity even in his final moments. Then came the cry recorded in Matthew 27:46 that echoed across centuries: my God, why have you forsaken me?" This was the sound of cosmic fracture, the only innocent person who ever existed being crushed beneath the accumulated evil of every human action ever committed or ever to be committed. The burden was devastatingly real. That triggers a significant question. What kind of love walks into all of that by choice? Jesus saw it all before it happened, from the garden that would leave him sweating blood, to the whip that would expose his spine, the nails, the suffocation, the hours suspended between earth and sky, and the abandonment. Yet he walked toward it deliberately. The cross was not merely about physical death. It was a reflection of every fragment of darkness. Yet he lovingly decided, "I will carry this, all of it." So that leaves us with this. If this was the cost required to reach you, what does that reveal about the distance you were from him?